Hi, okay, I'm going to dive right into this one because I've got a cup of boiling water and we're going to do a bit of tests on warping and dewarping. So while this is still hot, bit of sprue, I just want to test, so I'm dipping it in there. I'm not going to lift this up each time, but I'm dipping this in there. And I just want to see, right, okay, so there we go. Testing different plastics first. So that one did not snap. Here's an Airfix, reasonably thick one. Now Airfix plastic is quite soft, so I'm expecting quite a nice bend on this one. Okay, very good. Now obviously I'm being ridiculously over bending in this case because I want to just totally overstrain the plastic. This one is a bit more of a harder plastic. Let's see what happens to this one. Okay, not bad. Here's quite a thick thing, about 5 millimeters almost. Let's put that one in there. And then I'm going to get to the blue one, which is the main one in question for today. Okay, so this very thick one, oh, no problem. No problem. Okay, so obviously I'm not intending to really obtain bends of that nature, but what I am wanting to do, especially with this blue one, which is very brittle, listen to this. Okay, so that it doesn't even clip off properly compared to that one, which just cuts and falls here. This one just shoots it off at a rate of knots. Let's just see what happens with a bend. So before I actually dewarp a wing for this aircraft, okay, that is bending, that is good. Now obviously my wing isn't this thick, but what it does mean is that firstly, well, I hope, actually, to be honest, I should use thinner plastic. While this is hot, I actually just want to do a quick test with this. Let's just see what happens with this. Now, with a more accurate test, which I'll get to later, I would pour boiling water straight onto this. Okay. So point number one, we want to see that it doesn't shrivel up. Point number two is I want to see what happens, because this is the plastic that I'm going to use for the vampire's canopy, and I'm going to use boiling water for that. So this water is already probably only 80. So you just do some tests just to get an idea. This is thicker than your average wrapping, but it is still a packaging, and I want to use this curved section because it requires less bend and it's not a bad thickness there. Okay, let's take that out the way. So this aircraft, and for some reason there was a number of kits that were released in this dark blue plastic, which is a very brittle plastic. This plastic under normal circumstances just shatters like that. Airfix plastic, without heating it, bends like this. This plastic, just instant snap. So this is a very brittle plastic. Now remember we spoke about clear plastic being so brittle. I don't know why the blue coloration also makes this plastic so brittle. So what I have there is quite an anhedral on those two. The upper surfaces, luckily, very straight. So the upper surface is somewhat of a strongish plastic, which means that the upper surface will give an element of strength once glued to the bottom one. But I would like to not have to rely on the upper wing and the glue joint to correct that. Can I improve that with this cup of hot water, which is cooling as I speak? And my cup versus the length of the wing, of course, is not a complete wing dip. I've made them. I've accidentally broken wings in the past. In fact, I think one of my Sky Raiders is in this dark plastic. This happens to be Esky, but Monogram has also done this. So be aware that the plastic that you happen to be dealing with may or may not be more brittle than average. This one is. That's not a huge amount of bend. Let's just see. I'm dipping this in. So I've already tested that, at least on the thicker piece of plastic, you know, I get a reasonable result. You do have to watch that you're not just going to, the hot water just starts melting the plastic and it starts frizzling up and deforming. So that's warmed. I can feel it softer. I'm keeping to the sort of alignment of the plastic, not giving it weird bends, over bending it a little bit. Now I would, so it's not done anything yet, and my water only really went up to there, so the place where I most need my bend hasn't really been warmed that much. I'm over bending, and if that part is straight, put your force over there. Now if I do a bit more, I might snap this wing, but I've got a little bit of a good result there. It's better than it was. If I put it in the water and don't touch it, it probably goes back to its shape. It's about halfway back. It's not bouncing back completely. So let's see what I can do there. Now you have to be careful that you don't introduce waves and angles that you don't want. So if I was doing this inside, I would pour hot water into a dish and do the whole wing, because now I've got a little bit of an area here which I can't get into the hot water. Let's do that wing. So that's you can see the bend there. Let's see what we can do. Now, if you feel that the plastic is giving more resistance than you're comfortable with, that sort of may indicate that you're bordering on shattering, which is obviously not what you want to achieve. Okay, this side certainly seems to have more warp than the other side. Okay, so it is improving, and then you can fit the other surface and get an idea of how much or what sort of angles remained there. So trailing edge was looking good. The whoops, let's just get that back on there. That is actually not bad at all, and I would be comfortable that the glue joint would be okay there. And while you're gluing that, then obviously you're looking down the leading edge and trailing edge and making sure. The worst is to try and get, you know, if you've got a little bit of undulation and waves, which is quite unpleasant to try and keep dealing with. If you've got good straight surfaces to begin with, that's always better than trying to let the glue deal with it. So anyway, just wanted to show that. The other type of warping, which is very common, is fuselage warping, which can be quite difficult to deal with. This is not bad. That difference on the tail is nothing. So this fuselage, thank goodness, has cooled in such a way that I can glue that without having to dewarp. But my one Sky Raider needed an amazing amount of warping. Okay, so the point of sprues into the water just gives you an idea. If it wasn't obvious to you already with the clipping, you can hear the sound of the clipping and the nature of the clipping. If the part goes shooting off, or even, you know, you can sort of feel it was just a soft cut, or it shot off, indicates to you the type of plastic. But if it's the dark blue, you can just know it's quite a brittle plastic. And that's apparent when you're cutting the parts off the sprue as well. You know, cutting these little parts off, they can just go flying off because they snap. That little shock wave as you trim them off can knock the other side off the sprue, and your part can go flying off. So just be aware of those quite old brittle plastic. I'm not sure if that's something that still occurs these days, or if they've done away with that dark blue. It's a bit weird that they actually decided to go with that dark blue, knowing that it's such a brittle plastic. I mean, obviously they were sort of wanting to offer it as close to that as possible, but I would say that I would rather have chosen a better plastic and not have offered the kit in the absolute blue purple that they did. These decals, by the way, are in that state. So not looking good. We'll attempt to use that, but not expecting amazing results, which means either I just have to change plan and do something fictitious, because I'm not going to pay for a specific decal set just for that model. That is the other Phantom, the F4J. And again, I don't actually know the differences between the D and the CD and the J. If the differences between the C and the D were so minor, then I mean, I'm guessing again it's external aerials, it's little bulges and bumps. I'm not sure if there was a difference in nozzle, excluding weapons and so on. So those of you really clued up on the F4s, you can add comment. I mean, I'll Google that as well and just read up a little bit. The big thing here is you get a way more interesting decal set, but I haven't made up my mind that solidly that I'm going to build it. But if I do build it, it's undercarriage down, of course. I mean, it's the kit is nice enough that doing another build is pretty easy. And I may learn enough about correcting those intakes to devise a whole new method, a bit of a faster method of doing those intakes. So anyway, that one is there. I'll just show you the schemes that are indicated there. So that one with a blue nose does look quite different and interesting. That one's also totally fine. So it'll be a very nice contrast compared to the Vietnam scheme. When I get to do this, if you use flat plastic, and as I was saying, I haven't made my vac form box yet. I'll do vac form canopies, but I have done the hot water method and I've made canopies successfully. The key aspect here is having enough plastic to grip, because you need to have a solid mount for the canopy, not just put on with a bit of blue tack, because you're going to be putting quite a bit of force as that hot water is on. It depends exactly how I choose to do it. Either I sink this into boiling water and push the canopy into it, and obviously it needs to fold right around. The last time that I did it was with a flatter sheet and I think thinner, and pulled it around, which worked pretty well. I would like a little bit of a thicker canopy this time, because it's easier to work with and it glues on better, and this is, there's no reason to think this couldn't make quite a nice canopy there. That will be coming up pretty soon, because that vampire, that small 1/72 vampire, really is waiting for a couple of things: a nose wheel, nose leg, and remade canopies. And if I make one, I'll probably make two, which I could use on another build later, or even three, because you don't always get it perfect with one molding. I think last time I may have made it with something roughly about this size, or at least that size, so that you can hold it with two pliers, edges, and pull it down. We'll have to see, and it's generally not a one-person job, so we'll see how that one goes, and it will be on a YouTube demo. The undercarriage legs on the vampire are amazingly thin, and some jets, I think, well, I guess even prop planes, but the vampire's got very, very thin undercarriage, both nose and main legs. So when they broke, which they did long ago, and if you have this on kits, it's, you can't drill and pin that. It's too thin. I think it's about 0.5 millimeter. I mean, technically you could, but the last option that I'm left with is making the main leg out of brass and then putting little surrounds on it to give the detail parts of the leg. I haven't decided, but it's looking like brass legs for the main gear is going to be possible, although there's a number of detail bits which makes it a bit of work, and the nose leg is quite different, so I'll have to think about that. But anyway, canopy first. Okay, hope that was a good one to watch. Cheers.